Welcome to A Double
and
Dice
with your hosts Kim
and Jocelyn.
Pour your favorite beverage.
Pull up a comfy chair.
As we are ready to roll.
Welcome to episode 9 of A Double and Dice, and today we're talking about the good, the bad, the better of a Dice Master player, and of course, what makes Dice Masters fun.
And what does make Dice Masters fun, Kim?
I don't know. What does make Dice Masters fun? There's a whole bunch of things that make Dice Masters fun.
And what does make a Dice Masters player better?
Or good?
Or bad? These are the questions, the hard-hitting questions that Kim and I wanted to answer. Essentially, I was watching some of our good friend Chris, the True Mr. Six's YouTube videos of late. I'm going to call it a series of videos. So, Chris, this is your cue to put a third video in your series. You've got 2 so far, about how he is becoming a better Dice Master player and, the things to work on to become a better Dice Masters player. And if you don't subscribe to the Ministry of Dice's YouTube channel, I would encourage you to go over there, #MOD for life. You can find them on the YouTubes at the Ministry of Dice. So I would encourage you to go and take a look at those videos. But when I was watching Chris do these videos, which are really great, by the way, and I would strongly encourage you to watch them. They're both about, less than 20 minutes long. What occurred to me is, while Chris did a great job explaining the things that he's working on to become a better Dice Masters player and how he came to determine what those were using his knowledge, skills, and behavior matrix that he pulled from his work life, he didn't actually define what a better Dice Masters player was to him. And that sort of got my brain thinking, and I said to Kim and to Matt, I said, how do you guys feel about doing a survey of the community and saying what makes a better Dice Masters player? Because we'd really like to understand what people think a better Dice Masters player is. And everyone said, yeah, let's do it. Let's have that conversation and have that chat. Hence, our Google form was born, and we would like to thank the 17 people who responded to the survey, particularly Fred Astaire, who has responded from beyond the grave. He has been dead for 39 years. I had no idea Fred Astaire was a Dice Masters fan, but we appreciate him responding. So definitely really appreciate that. So we asked a few simple questions in our survey. We asked the community to define, what makes a Dice Masters player good, what makes a Dice Masters player better, what makes a Dice Masters player bad, and then just in general, what makes Dice Masters fun. And we wanted to see if we could find any themes. So if we look at the good, first of all, and before we go into actually that, I want to talk about the quality of the responses. So the response quality was amazing. And I really want to thank everyone who filled out the survey. And I'm not going to name drop anyone short of Fred Astaire because, as I promised, the survey is anonymous. And I appreciate all of the hard work and effort and well thought out responses that we received to the survey. And I will provide, and Kim and I will provide some of the quotes that were provided in the survey because it's just really, really awesome. And we are very thankful that you guys first off responded to the survey at all, and then secondly how much effort you put into it.
Yep, took the time to fill it out for us, so
yeah,
really appreciate that.
After only slight nagging from our part.
I don't think we bugged them too much.
You didn't. I might have posted it on Dice Masters Unlimited and Reddit and Dice Masters Online and possibly the CRGR Discord and maybe DM Armadas, I can't remember.
And Facebook. And
YouTube. And Ross's weekly Dice Arena stream and all of these places that we posted it for. So we got a few responses right off the bat when we posted the survey, and then a few started to trickle in after our last podcast. And because we had put a call out for that at the end of the podcast there, if you listen to that one. And then if you didn't, you should. It was a really great In Conversation with Craig Hubner, episode 8. Highly recommend it. so we got some responses there. We got some from the Weekly Dice Arena, and a few trickled in from some of my Facebook posts, and then people stopped doing anything. No likes, no comments, completely ignoring me. But that's okay, because we got 17 responses. So we really appreciate all of the thought and effort, as we mentioned. And definitely I would say, and Kim, let me know what you think, that it was interesting to get the answers from our friends in the community here.
Yeah, there was a couple things that were, oh, okay. A couple things like, yeah, I get that. Some lap overs, a couple of them, on the good and the better. But we'll get more into it as we go through them.
Yeah, and in general, aside from one or two clear jokes in the answers, most of the answers were, as I said, very serious. And everyone answered all of the 4 questions, although none of the questions were mandatory except your email address, and that was only because we were tracking how many unique responses we got. The only question that didn't get answered by all 17 people was what makes a bad Dice Masters player. Only 16 people answered that question. And then, of course, the extra comments was answered by any other comments was optional as well. And we got, I think we got 9 responses to that question, which is great. And we'll go through those in a bit. So when we look at what makes a good Dice Masters player, according to our friends in the community, we got a lot of answers about sort of, let's call it technical skills. Would that make sense, Kim?
Technical skills?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess. I mean,
so like bag management. So bag management was the number
mechanics, one. More mechanics, I guess. I don't know. Every time I hear technical, I think like computers.
I can see that. So mechanics of the game, or knowing how to use the mechanics of the game.
Knowledge.
Yeah, so bag management was the number 1 answer in the good category. What makes a good Dice Masters player is someone who can manage their bag, was the number 1 answer that we got there. We also had multiple answers on, can pilot their team, has a plan that they're playing towards, and can improvise when that plan falls through. Because, hey, this is a dice game, so you can have the best strategy in the world, but if your dice don't roll, then it's not going to help you. So how do you improvise to get there? So there was there was a clear theme there. That a good Dice Masters player has a strategy, and that they can use what the opponent brought to their advantage. There was some stuff about being able to build teams, observe and react to what your opponent is doing, have a good grasp of the rules, knowing when to stop buying dice. So again, one of those mechanic-y type things.
Yep.
There's 20 dice on your team, but you don't have to buy them all. So knowing when to stop and just cycle through what you've got there. Displaying their moves in an easy to follow way. I thought that was really good, especially with right now and the fact that so many people are only playing online because we can't get together in person. Displaying your moves in an easy to follow way, I think, is a really good call out there, and that makes a good Dice Masters player.
Is displaying meaning like walking through what they're doing?
Yeah, I think they could have meant walking through or explaining or just doing it on camera, for example, or in front of your opponent. So I think those were some of the key things that we heard here. So from this what makes a Dice Masters player good. But the other theme that came out of what makes a Dice Masters player good, so in addition to all of this mechanics-y stuff, was someone who has fun while they're playing, is friendly while they're playing, and values the game and not the win. And that was actually the number 2 answer. So some variation on that, fun, friendly, valuing the game and not the win, was the number 2 answer in the good category. So we sort of have players that are in 2 camps. We've got players that are all about a good player knows how to use the mechanics of the game and understands the game. And then we have the camp of players that said a good player is there to have fun and is friendly and wants to have a good time.
It's not all about winning.
It's not all about winning. So I thought that was a pretty good representation of a good player. And I think that all of those things combined, to me, do make a good player. Yeah, what do you think?
I would have to agree. I don't think there's anything I could think of that goes off this list. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could add to. I think a lot of people covered it pretty good.
When you think about a good Dice Masters player, Kim, are these the things that you think about?
Yeah, yeah. One that really popped to my mind is I'm not very good at bag management. But I've been learning, you don't have to buy everything, and if you don't, try to use what you have. For your, as one of them said, what your opponents brought as in globals or stuff like that. Use it to your advantage. Yeah, having fun, friendly. It is not all about winning, and if you win, great. If you don't, you're not taking it to heart, kind of thing, right? It's just a learning experience as well for you. What could you have done better? What could you have done with that? Like a lot of stuff I do is like, yeah, I forgot about that. You know what I mean? So knowing what your opponents have, I think. But I think a lot of people did cover it pretty good. I can't think of anything off that I can say that was missed.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good list. Now, if we look at what people think makes a Dice Masters player bad, and this is kind of an unusual question, because how do you define bad? What is bad, right? And that's kind of what I was trying to get at with this survey is what do these words mean in a Dice Masters context, right? So what was very clear here from the 16 answers we did receive to this question was there was sort of, I'm going to say it, sort of 3 categories. The first one had to do with attitude. So the number 1 answers, the top answers in this category were bad players have a bad attitude. They have a lack of attentiveness. They're not paying attention. Just straight out quote, cheaters, jerks, bad winners and bad losers. They're uncool to opponents and they kill the fun. So that was the number 1 explanation of a bad player, which is interesting because it's not really the opposite of a good player. Because the good player was more about the mechanics.
Right. More about the game.
And about the game and a subset of people having fun and being friendly. Whereas the number 1 answer in the bad category was about attitude and how you show up, basically, right? The second one, and I'm actually going to quote this from one of the answers that we had here. It was, there is I don't think there are bad players, just players that don't know as much or aren't as familiar with the best strategies. Or here's an answer that we got as well. It said, this may not be a fair question. A bad player may just be a less experienced one. Right? So this guy says, I guess I am saying there are no bad players, only good players learning to be better. So that was sort of the second camp of answers of what's a bad player. So someone who's not necessarily a bad player, they just might be new or just learning. And then the third one, I think, could be considered a subset of attitude. It's a particular type of player almost, where they talk about players who run from adversity or game changes. So someone here in this category talked specifically about, I run into many people who left the game because WizKids decided to change or tweak the game for the better. And because it affected a way of those people's way of playing, they quit the game. So I think of, I haven't been around since the beginning, and neither of you, Kim, right?
No.
So you and I didn't play in sort of the heavy original PXG era, where you use the original PXG global from the Uncanny X-Men card to ramp all of your sidekicks on turn 2, and then you have, the crazy thing you just bought, and you throw it in your opponent's face and you win, right? I think that's how it worked.
Something like that.
There. I wasn't there, so I'm not sure. But that was a very specific way of playing. And then WizKids said, no, that Professor X global is too strong. So when we rotate that out, we're going to do something a little bit more balanced. And then you got sort of the HXG global that's on the Heimdall card, or what's now currently on the Walk with Elias global, right? Or the new PXG in the X-Men Forever PXG, what I like to call the XMF PXG. So the WizKids tweaked the game. Is it better? Is it worse? It's different. It creates a different type of game state because now you can't ramp as many sidekicks as you can. You can ramp up to 2 and potentially up to 4 if your opponent also has that global. But you can't ramp all, whatever, 6 or 8 of your sidekicks.
8 of them, yeah.
Right? So it's different. Some people left the game because of that. I've heard that before in other podcasts and other interviews. Or the type of style of play you like to play goes away. We see this swing, and I've seen it since I've started playing more competitively. You go from like the direct damage meta of the super rare wand T, I buy dice and I win, yay, to what's happening right now, which is I'm going to attack you with an 8/8 over crushing Becky, and I'm going to force you to block with a sidekick, and I'm going to double that damage with a Jerry Lawler global. And I will then pump it up, and I might win on one turn, right? So the game sort of swings in different ways with different strategies, and some people like direct damage, and some people like combat, and maybe the people that like direct damage aren't really a fan of the meta right now, so maybe they're not going to play as much. But people that abandon the game, I think, is what this person's talking about, because they don't like that change. Is a sort of a subset of that attitude piece.
Which is very interesting. I never actually thought about that, banning the game or leaving the game because things change. And yeah, I can see that, because I'm always like, okay, here comes campaign boxes, no more draft packs. People didn't like that. It's just a change. You have to adapt to how the game is going, right?
Yeah.
And now we're coming back to draft packs, so it's like, okay, again, you have to adapt to how the game is going in the future, and you make that change. And yeah, if you can't make that change, I can see how that could be a bad player, right?
Yeah, or
have
someone
to adjust to it.
Yeah, and some people maybe don't want to adjust. They like the game the way it was. But this is an ever-evolving game, right? So maybe this isn't the right game for that person in the long run, right? And by leaving the game, maybe that was the best thing for that player.
Yeah.
So another subset of that talks about, people that are excited by turn 3 kills or always play the low-hanging fruit. People that are sloppy with their plays. They don't explain what they're doing. They're knocking around their dice, and they're, changing dice sides by not paying attention to how they're, moving their hands around on their mat, for example. That kind of stuff. So sort of sloppy, net decky
gameplay,
not being creative things. So again, I think that's a different type of attitude, a different style of player. And I think that's where sort of the third camp of answers of a bad player came in. And then there was just some, again, mechanics-y answers. So similar to how everyone said to be a good player, you needed bag management. If you're a bad player, you do not have bag management. We had if you're a bad player, you don't have ramp, or you don't know how to ramp, right? And then I'm gonna go that this is a joke answer here, that you brought couriers to a Dice Masters game, but we'll share that anyway. And we also had a answer that called out another member of the community that said, if you listen to this person, you're a bad Dice Masters player. So we'll pass over that one because that's just one person's opinion. But I think in general, I think it was interesting that a good player was primarily about mechanics with a subset of positive attitude and having fun, whereas a bad player was all about bad attitude, bad way of showing up, a tiny set of mechanics, and then there was that group of people that said there aren't bad players, they're just players that don't know how to play the game well yet because they're new.
Yep. Yeah. It's more of like personality, not the game when it comes to bad.
Yeah.
And I agree, like I don't think there is a bad player outwardly out there, like player as in the game. You come in, you're learning, you're going to learn, it's going to take you a while, it's not a day turnaround, you're going to learn to play the game and be a great Dice Masters player, right?
Yeah,
As
if
long
that's
as
what
you
you
can
want.
take the feedback of other people and you can take it well, it makes you a better player. So yeah, there is no bad players. And it's funny as you said, they take that low hanging fruit, and in the good one, it's they avoid the low hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep, definitely. So now we know what the community thinks a good player is. We know what the community thinks a bad player is. So what does better mean? Do you think we got a concrete answer?
of a better player,
Yeah.
I think it's more of an advance of a good player.
Yeah. So fair enough. So when we look at what makes a better player, what makes a Dice Masters player better, we had similar subsets of answers. But again, primarily it was about the mechanics and the ability to improve your gameplay. And although no one said it outright, the answer that I see all of these sort of pointing to is winning more, right? So a better player can manage their bag better. A better player can brew a better team. They can strategize. They can make the best of their bad rolls, and they take calculated risks. Okay, so I think that's all kind of in that same category. They can anticipate board state, and they can plan for future turns, and they're consistent. So again, that's sort of focused on the mechanics, right? There was some stuff about just knowledge in general, so knowledge of the sets, knowing when you're the offensive player, when you should be sort of doubling down on your offense, or when you need to be the control player. So again, that sort of strategy piece. So that came up. There was practice that came up with a couple of people. So you become a better Dice Master player by practicing. We had an answer that said from a couple of people again that losing helps you learn to be a better Dice Masters player. So when you are beaten by something, whether it's a combo or a player, if you can learn from that, it's going to make you a better Dice Masters player in the long run. A better Dice Masters player rereads the rules from time to time, pulls out the rule book, reads the rulings, double checks the keyword page. So that was kind of on the sort of the knowledge and mechanics of the game piece. Then we had the set that talked about attitude again. So we had the group that sort of went to that. A better Dice Masters player has a welcoming and accepting attitude. They always keep asking questions so that they're continuing to learn. They will explain how their stuff works to their opponent, and they'll teach. So suggest alternate plays to their opponent to help them be better. They foster a community and know their audience. So an example here, it said something about like the theme was to be kind to new players. So let me say here, I'm going to quote this one. Let's see, where did it go? So here it said, de-escalate your potential competitiveness during casual play. In other words, give the new or less experienced people a chance to win. Right? So I liked that answer a lot.
It becomes more of a teaching for you, not dominating a player that doesn't know.
Exactly. So there was that sort of subset. And then there was just the general, a Dice Masters player is better if they're there to have fun. So again, sort of on the people piece again. So that was kind of there. Then we had, if you want to be a better Dice Masters player, you need to know how to ramp. So again, that's sort of the opposite of a bad player doesn't know how to ramp. A better player does know how to ramp. And then again, here on a better player, it talked about using meta cards and strategic combos. So again, that sort of points towards, my interpretation is that points towards winning more, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Using those Beckys and those.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, yes. One thing I always, when I'm playing, it's like, if you don't know what a card does, ask. And I think that goes back to where you said explain how your stuff works or explain how your combo and stuff works. Because
Mhm.
I've been beaten a lot of times. I did not ask what a card did, and it just like, and I won't name who this game was during. It was recent. I didn't ask what the card did, and I got blindsided and got beaten pretty bad by it. Right. So um, that goes back to obviously knowing your sets, but I don't think you should be afraid, even though you're good, bad. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't know, ask.
Yeah,
And again, the
absolutely.
attitude on the other person would, again, if it's a good attitude, that makes them a weird player because they're like, oh yeah, this is what my card does. By the way, it works with this one, and that's what I'm trying to do, right?
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to ask, and if
Yeah,
you're like,
and don't
what?
be afraid to tell people what you're doing,
Yeah,
because even if you're, I'll say this, if I'm playing, sitting across from someone, Nick, and I have no idea what's happening with his team, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, can you
what's
just
going?
tell me what you're trying to do? Because I'm pretty sure I can't stop it anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
And he will. He'll explain it to me that this is the goal, right? So and you know he'll explain the combo to me and show me what he's trying to do. And 9 times out of 10, I don't have the right counter anyway because you know it's just the way it is. In certain ways, the meta can be considered wide open, especially in more of a limited team building challenge.
hmm
Uh, but but yeah, so I thought you know that was a really good one because explain it, right?
yeah.
Um, Here's an answer that I really, really liked. Kim, I think you'll like this one too. A Dice Master player is better just by being from Canada. So I am 100% on board with that
uh,
answer. The
I
Canadians here,
wonder who said that one.
the Canadians here are supportive of that.
I do know who said everything, but I actually never looked at who said everything. So I'm actually, this is all. I didn't look and see who. So
yeah. So yeah. So I think that you know, when I asked what makes a Dice Masters player better, I wasn't really sure what
hmm
I was going to get, right? That was the whole point of asking the survey. If I knew what the answer was, then it wouldn't have been very useful. So I think that by looking at this in this way, and we see that in general, to the community, a better Dice Masters player is one that knows the mechanics of the game better, knows the rules of the game better, and can use it to their advantage, which would generally mean towards winning, right?
yeah. The only one that really like so uses meta cards and combos. I'm indifferent with that one. Um, is that more? Are you going after the low hanging fruit?
Maybe. I mean, I think it depends, right? Because I look at it this way. If I'm going to a competitive level event, there's probably some prizing I want.
hmm
And if
Yeah,
there's
you're gonna go
prizing
all out.
that I want, I'm going to go all out and I'm going to play the team that I think gives me the best chance of winning.
Right.
But if that team is not fun to play, then I may not want to play that team, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I did take Super Rare Wanty to my first Canadian Nationals because that was the team, right? It was the team to beat at that point, and it was a team that I was familiar with, and it was not the most fun team to play, but I can tell you that I played a lot of that, and there was a lot of mirror matches, and that was the team that was there, you know, and it could have gone either way for me, right? So, you know, I can see that, especially if you're at a competitive level event. But if you're at a casual event, or if you're at an event that's just you're there to have fun, and you're taking Super Rare Wanty,
Yeah. It depends. I guess you could look at it in two categories, right? You could look at it as a competitive side to it, and then the casual, non-competitive side to it.
yeah. Yeah, so like one person said a Dice Masters player is better if they can find new and interesting combos.
Yeah, which I like that answer.
Yeah. I really liked the answer that said they're fun to play the game with, because that's, I think, what it comes down to, right? We all want to have fun. Um, So, but again, a lot of these answers were really on the mechanics and knowledge side and less on the attitude side.
Yeah.
So attitude was important in a good player, and attitude was important towards a definition of a bad player. But once you got to the better player, people seem to gravitate towards the answer of mechanics because mechanics gets you to the win. Mm-hmm. And if you answered the survey and that was not what you thought you were saying, let me know. Send us an email at tripledpodcast@dm-north.com, because that's sort of the answer theme that we felt that we got out of that. So I think it was really interesting. Yeah. And it does seem like the consensus is that to be a better Dice Masters player, you want to improve your mechanics so that you can potentially win more games. Yep. So that's what we learned from our survey. But before we go on, I do want to talk about what makes a Dice Masters fun, because every single person answered this question, and there were some really great answers in here as well. And if we look at the themes that we came out of this category, there was a mechanics theme again, there was a people theme again, and there was a variety theme. So the people theme was the most popular. So it was things like the camaraderie and accepting nature of the majority of the player base. It had meeting all the great people who play this game and playing face-to-face or at the very least online with others who live far away. The players without a doubt make Dice Masters fun. The community makes Dice Masters fun. The online community makes Dice Masters fun. And the people, those were all answers that we got out of this. So the people was the number one theme. The second theme that we got was the variety. So we've got people about saying, at heart, I'm a drafter, but I love building teams. I like limited challenges like 10 and 10, but wide open is great too. I've got someone here that said that, one of my all-time favorite games is chess. And I like Dice Masters because it's akin to chess. You know what you've got. It's all open book, right? And it's all about your strategy and how you react to those pieces that are in play. Right? So again, that's sort of the variety in the team. The creativity that comes with the team building, creating wacky and fun teams, that you know all the possibilities, but you never know what's going to happen because of the dice rolls, right? I like this one here. It says here, the intersection between carefully orchestrated combos and the randomness of rolling dice, right? So a lot of pieces on that variety here. And then here's another good one here, and from our friends over at rollandthunder.xyz, no G, are quoted in this answer. To quote our friend Arj, it says, from a technical standpoint, the game's fun increases the more you understand the hidden complexities and underlying mechanics of the game. Once the door opens and you begin to see those complexities, that's where the game's brilliance is revealed, right? And I think that's fair, because like when you first learn this game, it's kind of like, pull out the rule book, follow the sample game, and you're just dice beating on each other, right? Mm-hmm. Attack stats against defense stats. And then as you start to learn the abilities and the globals and the basic actions and how to use those to your advantage, you realize all the different options and varieties there are in this game, right? This person says, I maintain the most fun that I've had during games is games that I've lost by 1 or 2 points. The thrill of a good match that resolves in a 1-point victory are the best kinds of games and the most fun. Yeah. I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah. You're like, oh man, I won. And you're like, but that was so much fun. So yeah.
Then we've got like shenanigans, surprises, when a plan comes together against the odds, the amazing possibilities that can happen when you consider the probabilities. So that's kind of all about the variety piece, right? And then your mechanics piece. So there's some comments in here about it's easier to build a team compared to other collectible card games. You have more control, right? Because as opposed to something you're playing that's just a card game where you make a deck and you shuffle it, you don't know when your pieces are going to come out or what order they're going to come in. Whereas in Dice Masters, you have the ability to control that. You control your purchase order to a degree, depending on your dice rolls. and then how you manage your bag and all that sort of stuff. So people are saying that that's a good sort of mechanicsy thing. That it's open, everyone can see what's going on. There's no secret plays. The IPs came up a couple of points, the intellectual properties that are in the game, regardless of which one brought you in, right? There's something for everyone when it comes to this particular game, because there's so much varieties. So where do you land on fun, Kim?
Yeah, I like the themes and, coming up with a certain team that just like doesn't make sense, but it'll work. You know what I mean? Like the creativity out of it and just adjusting your team builds to a theme. I like that. I like, doing that kind of stuff and see what comes out of it and being surprised by a card that you were like, oh, that's a pretty cool card. Like it's just one of those, like an article you would do, like out of the shadows, right?
At dm-north.com.
Read those articles. You never know what you could find. The people's a big one. The community out there is amazing. Like people are out there to help you, and I think that's definitely number one. If people are having fun playing, you're going to have fun playing, right?
Definitely.
And losing in a game, someone said, yeah, as you said, by that one or two life, but it was fun to play, right?
Yeah.
Someone said dice, so it's just because it's a dice playing game.
Yeah, dice are fun, right?
Gotta love rolling dice. But yeah, I would have to agree with most of these. I think community is the biggest one, and definitely for me is building teams, just building creative teams that you would never see but would work. You know what I mean? Like building that combo that are surprising to you or surprising to your opponent. Like, oh, I didn't even know about that card, kind of thing. So,
absolutely. Yeah. So overall, what did you think of our survey and the answers we got, Kim?
Thanks to Jocelyn for putting all this together and sending it out. I think it was people answered it to what it could be. I think, I agree with most majority of the people on their answers and what they gave for bad, good, better player. Everybody's going to see something differently, but it seemed like it was all like you had certain groups when you got these answers. You had groups that talked about, the mechanics, or the groups that talked about the attitude. Like it always seemed like when you were giving your answers, you had like 3 different categories in like the good, the bad, or the great, right? So you almost see like different players. There are different players out there, everybody plays the same, and we saw that through the survey, like answers that people gave. And no, I thought it was good. Like a lot of stuff that I was like, oh, I didn't see that one coming, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I didn't see that coming, but now that someone's shared it with me, I completely agree with it, right? So I think that all of these answers were well thought out and are much appreciated, and they did fall into those sort of 3 themes, I would say. And I think it was really interesting to see that. So, it was great to get that info from everyone who took the time. So we really want to appreciate you guys for taking the time and making the effort to answer the survey for us so that we could have this chat about it. So
what did you think, Jocelyn, everything?
Yeah, so when I first put out the survey, I was like, I don't know what we're going to get, right?
Yeah.
And then I wasn't 100% sure that I was getting the answers that I think I was expecting, or that I maybe wanted. Maybe I had some preconceived notions of what I thought I might get. But once I sort of let go of those thoughts and just said, okay, these are the answers I'm getting, and they're all well thought out and they're interesting. I think that we did get the answer that I was looking for, which is, in general, people think a better Dice Masters player is someone who is better at the game, right? Is able to win more. And I don't think that's a wrong answer, and I don't think it's a right answer. I think it's just the answer that we got, right? Yeah. And I think that everyone answered the survey in a way that was true to them, and I appreciate every single one of the answers.
Yep. So thanks, guys, again for answering those. I mean, 17 responses. That's actually pretty.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed. So on that note of the responses, there was one last question on the survey, and it was any other comments. So it's literally just an open text field, any other comments. And I think we'd like to take this opportunity to sort of use some of these comments to talk about some of the feedback we got, because in general it was feedback about the podcast. So I'm going to go through some of those, and then we're going to continue on that feedback theme, because in the last few episodes we've had a few guests, and Kim and I haven't had much of a chat, but we have received some feedback from you, our listeners, and we wanted to talk a little bit about that and then share some stats about how things are going for us as a podcast. So hopefully you'll stick around for that. But before we go into that, please do let us know what you thought of the survey, what you thought of this episode, if you thought it was interesting, if you agree or disagree with the themes that we shared. And you can do that by sending us an email at tripledpodcast@dm-north.com or leaving a comment on our episode post. So other comments that we got, any other comments? So there were some general ones here. I meant to look this one up, Kim. I don't know what it means, and I forgot. It says, we need Githyanki.
Say that again.
Githyanki.
Get Yankee?
Githyanki.
Githyanki?
Yeah, you want to Google that?
I am Googling that.
So while Kim Googles that, so we learn what Githyanki is. There was a couple of comments here that just said, thanks for the show. Love the show. Keep up the great work. So, sorry, good work. Don't want to overstate the comment here. Thank you for that. I've got one here that says, just love the podcast. We've got one here that says, play some more of that smooth jazz. I enjoy the soft background music far more than I should. Other podcasters should take note. So, Kim, make sure there's some smooth jazz on this episode, please.
So we want some smooth jazz. All right. Okay. Usually we go with the chill back, music, but I'll get some jazz in for that person.
All right. We got here, this was a great survey about this game. This is how I view the game, and these are the reasons I love this game above all others. Although these are my views on the game, I do need to work on the things that make a player good and to get better. Thank you for this and all you do for the Dice Masters community. So thank you for that comment. So that was good. And thank you for the show, and keep it up.
Very nice.
Did you get anything on our Google search, Kim?
So this comes from D&D, it looks like.
Okay, so is it like a character or something?
It's a character. It looks like it could be like a mixed character, like a goblin kind of mixed with elf, mixed with... anyways, they're not nice people. I don't know.
Okay, well, Jimmy, if you're listening, we have a request for the next D&D set that they would like a Githyanki. Okay? See what you can do for us. We'd appreciate it.
So, yeah, I don't know anything about D&D, so that...
who does custom cards?
Paging
Reg.
Yeah.
Paging Matt. Someone wants a Githyanki card, so we're putting that on you. We're delegating that task to you.
Yeah,
so thanks everyone for the survey.
If I totally butchered that, I'm sure we'll hear it from some
I hope
D&D
so.
people.
And you know what? We probably will hear it from someone at some point, Kim, because do you know how many listeners we have?
Ooh, I think I do.
Share with us.
Oh, should I? Okay. We reached about 5,000 downloads in the last couple of weeks from our episodes.
No. 5,000.
500, sorry. Did I say 5,000?
You said 5,000.
Wow. Yeah, we're good.
It's okay. In our last episode with Craig, I said that we've been in lockdown for 10 months. It just feels like 10 months. It was only 10 weeks when we recorded that episode. Not 10 months. No, we exceeded 500. Now
you're saying.
500.
And Buzzsprout estimated that we have about we've hit the 100 mark of 108 listeners.
Yeah, so listeners is a metric that Buzzsprout uses to estimate how many unique downloads of a podcast episode you're going to get in the first 90 days. So their estimate right now, based on our first 8 episodes, is that we have about 108 unique listeners. And I think that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how that compares to our friends at Roll & Thunder or the Ministry of Dice or Dice Masters United. But I'm pretty pleased with that number.
Yeah, over 100.
Yeah, so that's
pretty good.
Pretty good. So, and we've been seeing a consistent trend in people continuing to listen to the episodes. So our earlier episodes, of course, have more downloads, and I think not everyone is fully caught up on all of the episodes that we've put out. But it does seem like people continue to download them. So we really appreciate that. And, we appreciate that you're downloading and listening, and that we hope you keep listening and keep enjoying the podcast.
And just to, shout it out there, I mean, we're up for suggestions. Like, if you want to hear us talk about anything, the Dice Masters world, our views on anything like that, definitely drop us a line. Like, we are open to suggestions, or ideas or anything like that. So
Speaking of dropping us a line, did we get some emails, Kim?
Yes, I think we got 3.
We have
4, 5, 6. No, we got some 3 emails that we want to talk about.
Yeah. So we've got a question that we didn't get to in our Craig episode. So in advance of Craig joining us on the podcast in episode 8, he had sent us a list of questions. And I said to him, well, let's see if we can get you on the podcast, and then we can answer your questions live. We didn't get to one of those questions. So, Craig, here's the question that you had that we didn't get to, and it was for me. It says, with getting older and having never used any vision assistant devices, how long can I go with using a magnifying glass to be able to read the text on my Dice Masters cards, books, and newspaper before I really need to get glasses? So, Craig, let me tell you here. As an optician, you should get your eyes tested regularly. And regularly means every 2 years. More often if you have certain health conditions such as diabetes or high blood pressure. And the reason for that is that they can detect certain conditions in your eye before they can detect them in your body. Your eye is a unique part of your body in that your eye doctor can actually look into your eyes and see your blood vessels, which you can't do in any other part of your body unless they cut you open. So it's a pretty good and important thing to do. And certain diseases like diabetes and high blood pressure can also increase your risk of other eye diseases, which could increase your risk of going blind. I'm not here to scare you, but please get your eyes tested. And you're much better to get your eyes tested and have prescription glasses than use over-the-counter reading glasses or a magnifying glass. So I would highly recommend that you take some time and get your eyes tested if you are able to, where you are, depending on the current state of the pandemic.
And I would say, Jocelyn, does that go for people who don't even wear glasses? They should always get their eyes checked as well.
It absolutely does, because of that health of your eyepiece and the health of your body piece. And I actually have a real life experience where I had a patient diagnosed with a brain tumor by going for an eye exam. So, because the patient was having trouble seeing and they thought they had a problem with their eyes, and it turned out they actually had a tumor in their brain that was pressing on their optic nerve. And by diagnosing that through the eye exam, that patient was able to get help. So I would encourage everyone to get their eyes tested, and you should get your first eye test at the age of 6 months. So any of you that have little tiny Dice Masters players coming along, start thinking about that. And once you hit the older years, every year is important. So.
Awesome.
So that is my opticianry sideline.
Advice line.
Yeah. We also got an email from Rob L. So Rob L's email is titled, Good Show with Craig. Joss and Kim, great talk with Craig on the latest episode. I enjoyed the conversation, and it was interesting to have the focus on many elements of playing Dice Masters outside of card combos and game breakdowns. Craig seems like a natural podcaster, and if a Double in Dice ever expands to include a third chair, my vote is for Craig to be on the shortlist for the spot. Good job. So thanks, Rob. We really appreciate your email. We thought Craig did a great job as well. And I definitely felt like I was not the podcaster in that episode. I felt like I was the guest.
You were the interviewers? No,
yeah.
The
interviewees.
Interviewees.
So I really liked it. It was a fun episode, and it was really great to have Craig on. And Craig was a popular guest because our next email, and the last one for today's email segment, again, triple D podcast at dm-north.com, was from Andy May, and Andy said, Craig! Exclamation point. He says, nice choice with Craig. He's so cerebral that it's fun to listen to him think his way through all of this. Really nice choice. Andy made a couple of suggestions of other guests that we may want to consider in the future, which I will keep to us as we consider those options. And then Andy finishes by saying, great job, ladies. So thank you very much, Andy, for that email.
Thank you, guys.
And you can find us other places, not just by emailing us at tripledpodcast@dm-north.com. Right, Kim?
That's right. You can find us on Discord.
Like who else did?
One, Ben. Everybody knows who Ben is. He actually reached out to me direct message back in May, so apologies for the late. I know we had a lot of different episodes in between that. He said, great job on the podcast so far. Very enjoyable! ! You and Jocelyn are both brilliant together.
That's really nice. Thanks, Ben.
For that.
Which Ben? Do we know which Ben?
Ben said Scott.
Okay. Thanks, Ben said Scott.
Another one I got was when I played round one in the One Big Weekend. I was playing against C. Wally, and he said my voice sounded very familiar. I was like, oh, I feel, popular, right? My 50 minutes of fame. I said, maybe, did you hear me from a Double and Dice podcast? And he said, yes. So he says he's really enjoying our podcast. It's really enjoyable, and, keep up the good work. I apologize. That is a lot of rain pouring. I don't know if you can hear that, Jocelyn.
The smooth jazz is going to cover all that up.
Oh, yeah. And recently I got one from Discord name is A Literal Communist. I apologize. I don't know actually your actual name, so apologies on that. Said, I absolutely love your podcast! ! It's my go-to commute podcast, and I can't wait for your next episode! ! So thank you for that. So those were all direct messages and live when I was on the call with C. Wally. So thank you very much, guys. We appreciate all that positive feedback. And positive or not positive, we do want to hear it. So again, triple D podcast at dm-north.com, or on Discord. You can reach us. I'm under Super K. And
I'm
Jocelyn.
at JBOUWME, J-Baum. So now you can probably hear the rain on my side.
Oh, yes.
So like Kim said, it's not just the positive stuff we want to hear. If there's opportunities or suggestions, we'd love to hear those too. So please make sure you reach out. We'd love to hear from you. And then I guess before we end, we would probably be remiss, Kim, if we didn't talk about EarthX Origins.
Oh, yes.
Because this podcast is going to come out on, Jocelyn needs a calendar, Monday the 15th. And EarthX Origins is the 20th.
Yes, Saturday, June 20th, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And if you're not familiar with that, if you haven't heard about it yet, Arj and Lucan are podcast friends over at rollandthunder.xyz, no apostrophe, no G. Are putting on this event, which is sponsored by WizKids, and the prizing is those sweet, sweet animated X-Men promo cards that were only available so far either at Dice Masters Worlds in Memphis 2019 or at the European WizKids Open in 2019. So if you're interested in that, top 8 prizing will include those X-Men animated series promo cards, official from WizKids, and the event is being put on by Roll & Thunder. And the CRGR Game Room folks are helping out with the logistics of that through their Challenge account. You can sign up there and their Discord. I think our illustrious leader, Matt, here at DM-North is helping with some of the prizing and logistics as well. So it's a full-on modern competitive event, no bans. So current modern, May 1st, 2020 modern onward. So get out your Beckies. And get yourself ready, or get out your Becky counters and get yourself ready for a great day of rolling dice on Saturday, June 20th.
Should I dust off the, God Catcher? Because I've never ever played that yet.
Well,
Now's a
you
good time to start playing that.
might want to try it out once or twice first to make sure you
Yeah,
understand the flow, because I just learned that to be a better Dice Masters player, you need to practice.
exactly.
And you need to
And
have a
fun,
plan, and you need to be able to strategize and make the best of bad rolls.
funny enough too. You know who's I've never played as well? Iceman. I've never built an Iceman team yet either. Crazy,
Iceman
right?
still has legs, you know. Even though we don't have Magic Missile anymore, Iceman still has legs.
Black
So
Widow forever.
Black Widow agent. Yeah, so we'll see what the teams look like. I'm sure it's going to be really interesting, and hopefully they get a lot of players. As a note, this is an online event, but there is a small entry fee. It's $7 US, and that is to cover the shipping of the prizes around the world, depending on where they need to go to. So,
I think they dropped it to $6. It's $6.
is it 6 now? Okay.
Yeah, when I signed up, it was $6 US.
Okay. There you go, folks. Kim's going to be there.
Oh yeah, I signed up, so there's no going back.
Yeah. So if you're interested in playing Dice Masters with a bunch of people from all over the world, it's a great opportunity to get online. And RollingThunder.xyz has all of the information on their webpage, so I would encourage you to go and take a look at that. So on that note, Kim, have we got anything else for today's episode?
We do not.
All right, so let's just wrap it up by reminding you all of the places you can find us. So you can email us at triple-d-podcast@dm-north.com. You can find us on our website at dm-north.com. We're available on Facebook and Twitter at Dice Masters North. You can find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Dice Masters North. And we apparently do have the Instagram, but still have not figured out quite who has access to it. So, more information to follow. But until next time, on a double and dice.